So today I wanted to talk about the impact of processed foods on your emotional eating pattern. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because while emotional eating really isn't about the food, food does play a role in it. And sometimes when we are trying to figure out our emotional eating and we feel so out of control with food, we want to control it with diets, or maybe we want to control our body with exercise plans, or we try intuitive eating. And all of these have a little piece of the puzzle, but it's not really giving you the whole thing. When you're with intuitive eating, it's almost like we treat food as neutral. We don't judge whether we had something that's health giving or health depleting, and food can be neutral in a way, but we also have to understand the qualities of food because it is impacting our body. That's why we went to food in the first place, to soothe ourselves. It's actually having a biochemical, physiological reaction in our body. We're getting a dopamine hit. We're feeling good from it. And so we need to drop this one layer of shame and judgment and criticism that we give to ourselves, but we also need to recognize that food has qualities we need to look at. So this is something that when I'm working with clients, I'm helping them to understand, because I think the picture out there is not clear. And so we can throw food out the window and we think we can eat whatever we want without really discerning what is health giving to our body. And this is where processed food comes into play. Processed food is really created by manufacturers to alter our cravings. So they're heightened and they're meant to actually make us crave them and want to eat more and sort of keep buying them. And that's why we can become addicted. But when you layer in your emotional eating pattern, we've got a lot more going on here. And so we need to understand this. For a lot of my clients and a lot of women, they're not binging on carrots and they're not binging on broccoli. They're binging on processed foods, things that, they're sort of stuffing and eating. And part of the reason it feels addictive in that moment is because of these qualities. These foods are made to be hyper palatable. They give us dopamine kicks. And so that response to our brain, that sort of endorphin rush, you could say, that dopamine kick, it's helping us to not feel the way we feel. It's helping us to cope and to kind of cover up the emotions we're feeling. So when we're emotionally eating, we're essentially using food to soothe ourselves from discomfort, distress, uncomfortable emotions. And our brain loves efficiency. So it's going to say, go to these processed foods to feel better. And in that moment, we're going to have a craving. And so we need to be aware of what this food is doing to our body, what's really happening. But it doesn't have to be so complex. Because when I'm working with clients, what's happening is that we are learning how to nourish our body so that we can discern when we're in an emotional trigger and discern how we feel with certain foods, so we can make a really conscious and sovereign choice around food. And so one way of doing this is to really learn to nourish your body. Something that processed foods do is that they're not satisfying your hunger. To truly nourish yourself, a meal needs to physically fill you. It has to have enough energy or calories, it has to have enough nutrients, and it has to taste good. And so processed food tends to have the taste good, there's lots of calories, a surplus, and you want to keep eating because your stomach is actually not full. So you're going to keep wanting to eat because it's missing this filling. It's sort of missing this part that it is meeting all of your nutrients and filling you up. So you're going to eat until your stomach's full, but you want to keep getting those nutrients. You're going to keep wanting to eat those. And this was something I noticed for myself when I was on my journey. Let's say I was out and there was nothing available. There weren't, fruits or vegetables. There was just like cake or something. And I was really hungry. I couldn't just eat one piece of cake and, it had enough, let's say, energy or calories. It tastes good, but it wasn't filling my stomach and it wasn't giving me the nutrients. So I kept feeling hungry and I wanted more. I wasn't in an emotional trigger. I was just actually hungry. And so if we take these two pieces of the puzzle, we need foods to satisfy our true hunger and processed foods don't, and we mix in emotional eating, it becomes complex. Because when we're triggered into our emotional eating, we're wanting to go to these foods and they're creating even more damage because they're making us want to eat more and more to get that dopamine kick. We're not binging on carrots or, broccoli or anything like that. We're binging on processed foods, and we have to be aware of how they were created. And so when I'm working with clients, the way we deal with this is we start truly nourishing the body, so it's satisfying hunger on all of those levels, finding our triggers so we can do the deeper work to resolve our emotional eating pattern. And when we get it at the root, because food is just a band-aid, we will not be craving food in that moment. We can discern it. And once we're able to clear that emotional eating layer, and we know we're not emotional and choosing these foods because we're craving it because we're in an emotional sort of state and we want it, from that place, we can make a choice to have something that is maybe more processed, like a donut or a cookie or whatever it is, and see how it feels in our body. And what I've seen with clients is that from that place, they no longer want to eat all of the things. So I've had clients, it's like all they could eat are burgers and fries. They never thought they could crave fruits or vegetables. But after doing this, they started to crave fruits and vegetables. And when they would have, let's say, the more processed food, when they weren't triggered, they didn't want to have it anymore because it didn't feel good in their body. They were shifting what they were recognizing as feeling good in their body, as nourishing them in their body. And it's almost like this magical thing that happens when all the pieces are working together. We're not craving foods out of an emotional state or because it tastes good. We're actually finding things that are good, feel good in our body, that taste good. And even though these processed foods are manufactured to make us crave them, we have more sovereignty to make that decision in that space. So if we're emotionally triggered and we work through and resolve it, we can choose, maybe we're not actually hungry, or maybe we just want that cookie, or maybe we want to have a nourishing meal, and we have more choice versus just automatically going to the processed food. And one, we may not have been hungry, and then we are overeating this food to get that sort of dopamine kick. And so this is something you need to be aware of as an emotional eater. It's not to make it complex or to make food the enemy. Food can be neutral. So we're neutrally looking at food, but we're also being aware that some foods have health-giving qualities, health-depleting, some feel good in our body, some interrupt our digestion, some make us feel lethargic. We're wanting to see how foods feel for us. And what I find is that we're going to want to go towards the foods that feel good. In that moment, we're going to make a different choice. We're going to have more fruits or vegetables, or our body's going to start speaking to us. And that's usually what happens for clients. They don't have to force themselves to eat fruits and vegetables. They are motivated. Their body is wanting. It starts craving those foods, but it's actually just speaking that that's what I actually need to feel good, because our body wants to feel good. It doesn't want to feel, stuffed and like desperate for these foods. So when I'm working with clients, that is how we get to ease and peace around food, and feeling that ease and peace in our body, because they're directly related. And it doesn't have to be so complex, but we still need to understand that food plays a role in the sense that we did go to it for a reason. It does have a physiological effect on us, and we can't just throw it out the window and say every food is, neutral or good for us. Or bad for us. It's not about good or bad. It's about genuinely seeing how it feels in our body, if it's health-giving, health-depleting. And so I think there needs to be more of a nuanced conversation around this. And, that is where you start prioritizing how you feel, your health, and what feels good in your body. And that is going to put you in a more sovereign place, because we can't forget that there are processed foods. There are foods that are made particularly to impact our cravings, to want us to buy more, to eat more, because companies make money off of that. And so they're not creating foods that are whole foods that are what we are meant to have. They're creating those foods, and it doesn't mean you can't have them in your life. You just have to be understanding and discerning about it as you move through your emotional eating journey. So I hope what I've shared today has helped you sort of see a little bit more about what processed food does in the emotional eating pattern, and that you have to be aware that these foods, we can't just look at them as neutral, like in some, eating modalities, in some like for instance, in intuitive eating or in some other emotional eating programs, they might say food is neutral, there's no good or bad foods. Yes, but we need to look at the qualities of them. And so I'm looking at this from a nutritional perspective as well, because we can't ignore the needs of our body. This is also honoring our body by understanding the nourishment we're getting from these foods and the nutrients that we need to feel good. So if you want to get started on this journey, the first step I always recommend to clients is to start discerning true from emotional hunger and finding your triggers. I have a free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? You can find out more below. And if you're ready to resolve your emotional eating from the root and you're looking for guidance, support, the in-depth tools to really get to the root, I'd love to direct you to my 12-week program, the Emotional Eating Evolution Program. In this program, you get a step-by-step process, the tools, the guidance and coaching, the one-to-one sessions to get into the root of this pattern, to shift it so that food becomes an ally in your life. You're no longer pushing food away or pulling food towards you. You see food for what it is and you can honor it, and you can choose foods that honor your body as well and feel good in the process. So you're going to feel ease and peace around food and in your body. So if you'd like to find out more about either of those, you can find out more at the links below. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.